Hey,
Je rentre en conférence vidéo, pas de... Ok, pas de bruit. Pas de bruit, ça veut dire pas de bruit. Sorry, Mike.
it's okay.
How are you, Mike?
I'm good, thank you, Frank.
Kids are back home. Sorry for the inconvenience.
That's all right. It's okay.
Maybe you stop record and redo the record.
I'm only recording these sessions so that anybody who misses them can obviously catch up. I need to find some simple way of splitting off all of this initial discussion and just cleaning up the front end so that people get a clear start to the whole session. But I'll find that eventually. We've had four, if not five people. I think we've had 5 people accept. So I don't know where they all are.
Hey, it's not 5. 4, sorry.
Sorry, hang on.
You're always late.
Today, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we've had 5 people, 6 people. Oh, no, sorry. You're in twice for some reason. I don't know why you're in twice. But Sandrine accepted.
Now it's 5 o'clock. Or it's 4 o'clock your time.
No. I mean the number of people who have accepted.
You're right, but they are not late yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay. We'll give them a few more minutes. So we should be expecting Sandrine, Kristen, Elizabeth, and Holger. So we'll wait and see. How's the new job going?
Perfect. Great. Like it.
That's what I like about you, Frank. When I ask anybody else how's the new job going, they say, well, it's okay. You know, this is good, this is bad. Not you. You just say, parfait, straight away.
It cannot be anything else. It is recorded. We don't know who will listen.
Oh, I see. Yes, of course.
It's a big message to the competition. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt.
I should have
Very promising. You can imagine the pipe I have.
Sorry. Yes, of course. So did they have you working on a particular alliance, or are you working on multiple?
Multiple alliances across the French sector. So dealing with most of global SIs involved into the testing practice. We got a very good traction around SAP.
Oh, okay.
Because due to the ECCS announcement, all the install base of SAP need to move before 5 years to the cloud. And of course, we can reduce the risk for this transformation. But out of SAP, we got plenty of good things too.
Always helps when there's a deadline.
Let's name him a compelling event.
So guys, I'm just waiting for a couple more minutes. Both Sandrine and Holger have registered for this session. So I just want to give them a chance to join us. Liz is saying, just need to stay on mute for a few minutes as there is some background noise that will soon be over. Oh, obviously Liz is having a party and she's breaking away from the party to attend this webinar, which I'm very, very grateful for, Liz. Thank you very much indeed. We'll give it a couple more minutes, and then if they haven't joined by 5 minutes past the hour, we'll get started. Let me share my screen. There we go. And let me pick the right stage. Yep, stage 3. That's good. Put it in presentation mode. Just to remind everybody, we are recording this session. And Sandrine, I thought Sandrine wouldn't let us down. There she is. Okay, so I think we've got everybody well, pretty much everybody. Holger registered as well for this session, but I think we should get started. So just before we get started, this is stage 3, just to do a quick recap on what we've been through already. So stage 1 is about benchmarking a specific alliance relationship. I would particularly recommend a strategic alliance relationship, meaning strategic meaning important to you, typically either very commercially valuable or potentially very commercially valuable. An alliance meaning it's a relationship which for its value depends on active collaboration. So not a resale situation, but a situation where you're looking to develop joint value propositions which you can both sell to market. So that was stage 1. And stage 2 was the creation of the stage by which you create an alliance charter or vision document. As we said, it doesn't matter particularly what you call it. In the alliance best practice terminology and methodology, we call it an MOUP, Memorandum of Understanding and Principles. Now, the third session that we're going to do today is about how you create a joint action plan, an executable joint action plan to move from stage 1, where you are now, to stage 2, where you want to be. Just before I get started on stage 3, I wanted to mention 2 key numbers that you should already have. If you haven't already got them and you want a short call to talk about how you get them, then please get in touch and I'm happy to speak to you individually, separately. So you should have 2 numbers. One number is the VST score for your chosen relationship. So you should have a number somewhere between 0 and 100. Hopefully, although not essential, but hopefully that number should be a number which is compiled from assessments from both sides, from your side and from your partner side. But if it's just your side, then again, that is workable. So one number is your best practice, your VST score. The second number is something which you probably won't want to share with me, which is absolutely fine. It's the commercial value that you're currently enjoying from that relationship. Now, different organizations have different ways of assessing what that commercial value is and how you come to that number and what gets counted and what doesn't get counted. That's not too much of a problem as long as you stick to the same way of judging the commercial value. Now, the reason those 2 numbers are so important is essentially all to do with self-preservation. You have a job and you want to show your line manager and your organization that you're creating value for the organization. So you want to track those 2 numbers during the course of the next 12 months. So you want to be able to say, I'm starting this relationship and it's scoring 35. And the following things are scoring above 50, which is relatively good. And the other things are scoring below 50, which is relatively not so good. So I'm going to pick off a manageable number of things and I'm going to seek to improve them. Now, when I'm scoring this number, this initial number of 30 or 35 out of 100, whatever it is, the commercial value that this relationship is producing for my organization is X. That could be 100,000, it could be 1 million, it could be 5 million, it could be 10 million, whatever it is. But you need to get those 2 numbers in your executives' heads, because as you progress during the year, you want to show them that by focusing on the causes, you're having an effect on the results, the effects of the best practices, and your revenue is going up. That's how you're going to justify your own role, justify your team's role, justify how you use this approach with more and more and more alliances. So it's very important you've got those 2 numbers. If you haven't got them, if you're confused about how to get them, please let me know. Okay, so let's get started with stage 3. So these are the areas I'm going to cover over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. I'll leave some time for questions at the end. We're going to go through a process of agreeing the operational stakeholders. If you remember, we said that in the VST process, we separate creating the vision stage from creating the operational plan to deliver the vision stage. That's stages 2 and 3. That's quite deliberate. So you may have different stakeholders, i.e. operational stakeholders in stage 3, who will be different from the stakeholders you have in stage 2. Then you will, then we'll talk about how you brief your operational stakeholders on the vision and strategy, because don't forget, they may not have been involved in stage 2. You may have to explain various aspects of stage 2 to them. Then we'll run through a worked example of how you would run a stage 3 workshop. Then we'll get to this section, which is how you create a joint go-to-market action plan, or a joint alliance improvement action plan. And crucial in this is this concept of RACI, or RACI, responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Very, very, very often I see alliance improvement plans that are simply a list of tasks and some dates when they have to be achieved by. And if we're very, very lucky, there might be some names allocated to some of the actions. A RACI process, or a RACI process, gives you a structured process that you can follow that will help you to create achievable action plans, achievable joint action plans. Then I'll show you some outputs. I'll show you some example templates, which again, you can download from the website. And then of course, we get to the typical final step of the stage, which is agreeing the go, no go to the next stage. Quick review, we're at level 3, we're at stage 3 here, and we'll be doing the next 3 over the next periods of weeks. By the way, I should have mentioned and made it clear, what I'm doing with these sessions now is I'm making them every 2 weeks, because I'm now running 2 cohorts. I've got one cohort, which I'm calling September. That's you guys, because you started in September 2022. And I've got another cohort starting in October. And so I don't want to mix the two. I'm quite happy to pull you both together when you've both finished the VST process, and you can talk to each other about how it's going and what you're finding and experiences and all of that. I'm quite happy to do that. In fact, I will be doing that. But I think it would be too confusing if we invited a group of people who'd gone to stage 3 to join some people who'd gone to stage 4. So I'm keeping the 2 cohorts separate for the moment, but to be able to do that and stick to the same time, I'm making it every 2 weeks. So I'll send you a Zoom invite, as I did last time, for the next session, which will be in 2 weeks' time, and we can run through stage 4 then. This is, again, the VST overview, which you've seen before. It's just basically reinforcing. We're at stage 3, the executing piece. And as it says, the output is going to be a RACI joint go-to-market action plan, or a RACI joint alliance improvement action plan. So, agreeing the operational stakeholders. The first step in stage 3 is to agree who will attend the stage 3 workshop. Now, again, I'm talking about a workshop as though it's one event, one face-to-face workshop, including both sides. Obviously, with COVID, obviously with the lockdown, people have experimented with running meetings via video conference, Zoom, Teams, whatever. Yes, you can do that. It is harder to do. It's better to do it face-to-face if you can. But if you do it by video conference, I would suggest you run it as 2 separate 2-hour meetings. You'll need around about 4 hours to get through all the material that you want to get through and to agree the plan. So the first step is to confirm the operational stakeholders, the people you want to be in the operational stage. Now, as we said, these might not be the same people that were involved in stage 2. So typically these people are the on the ground in the accounts, either salesmen, marketeers, or technologists. These are people who actually talk to the customers, actually have to deliver on the promise of the alliance relationship. Be aware that the scope may have changed during the previous 2 sessions. So just be aware that in, just like anything, VST is a dynamic process. As you go through each stage, there may be some slight changes. So reinforce and reconfirm the scope that you're going to be talking about in stage 3 to your agreed key stakeholders. This next point is the most crucial one, really, which is that you need to remember that the vision or the MOUP document that you've created out of stage 2 are non-negotiable by the operational stakeholders. The purpose of stage 3 is not for an entirely new group of people to come on board and say, well, I don't like that vision. I think we should do this and this and this. No, we've gone through a process, and once you've gone past a previous stage, that stage is locked down. So we've done the vision, we've involved the key stakeholders from both sides that we needed to involve. They have the necessary authority, and they have made the decision and encapsulated in the stage 2 document. Now, it's absolutely fair that you should share the stage 2 document with the operational key stakeholders before the workshop, so they know what task they're being set. But the job in stage 3 is to figure out how to best execute that already agreed vision, that already agreed high-level MOUP document, which articulates what we're trying to achieve. It's not the job of the operational key stakeholders to completely reinvent the vision. That's incredibly important. And as I say here, the best way to create the joint plan is through a face-to-face workshop, a working workshop. And the output stage 3 is the agreed joint go-to-market plan, or the joint alliance improvement plan. And it's a joint plan, don't forget, lest I haven't made it entirely clear. This workshop that I'm talking about is a workshop for both sides. It'll be both partners. It'll be your organization and it will be your partner's organization. Okay. Any questions before I continue? Anybody want to say anything? You're all okay? You either put your hand up or stick something in the chat if you do. Okay.
All good.
Yes. Was that somebody?
No. Say, all good.
Oh, good. All good. Sorry, Frank. Yes, of course. Okay, so just like stage 2, just like the way we describe stage 2, there are 3 parts to stage 3, which is pre-workshop, at the workshop, and post-workshop. So before the workshop, you would typically send stage 1 and stage 2 output documents to the key stakeholders who are going to be attending stage 3, so that they're fully briefed. They may want to come back to you and ask any questions, or you may want to hold a pre-workshop briefing call, which says, here are the documents, let me explain them to you, let me explain the implications, so that when we hold the workshop, we can hit the ground running, we can have very good conversations and dialogue about how we can best deliver on that agreed vision, those expectations, those things that we would like to do, aspirations. You can then send the attendees to the workshop the stage 3 joint go-to-market plan template, if you wish. Again, that's something I'll share with you. I'll show you on this call, and you can download it from the website. And you can invite them to complete a straw man prior to the workshop. I think we talked about this before as well. A straw man is a document where you are asking questions about the agenda points, and you're inviting the attendees to give their opinion on each of a range of different areas. And the advantage of creating a straw man before the workshop is essentially speed. You're able to have a a draft of the joint go-to-market plan that people can then debate. They've got something to talk about rather than just having a completely blank sheet of paper. So the workshop objectives, before you run the workshop, in no particular order, these are all jointly important, I would suggest, is to refine and build one or more joint business value propositions from stage 2. Stage 2 will typically define the outline of the joint business value proposition, but it won't go into any great detail. You wouldn't expect it to. It's not a detail planning session, it's a vision setting. So in stage 2, the actual operational executives, workers on the alliance have to figure out what does that joint business value plan mean to us? Technically, what elements are involved, what needs to integrate with what, from a marketing standpoint, how are we going to market it or them? From a sales standpoint, how are we going to sell it, to whom, which kinds of organizations? So we're refining the joint business value proposition. In other words, what are we selling together? Secondly, another objective is to agree on the key objectives. Excuse me. Typically, that's usually things like key target clients or markets. You're not trying to boil the ocean. You're trying to be very specific in this. You're trying to be very focused. And so usually both sides will have suggestions about clients or prospective clients or markets that they feel that the joint business value proposition will be particularly relevant for. Another objective is to uncover critical gaps. So when you're thinking, when you're conducting the discussions and you're leading the debate around how to build these joint propositions, you may come across certain situations where there's a gap, there's a lack of knowledge, or there's a lack of resource, or there's a lack of something. That's fine. And again, don't let it slow down your planning for stage 3, because there's a stage following this, which is stage 4, resourcing, which is specifically designed to pick up on any of those gap areas. So what you would do is you'd identify it as a gap area or a need in the document, in the stage 3 document. You'd get the executive sponsor to sign off on it, but you'd make the executive sponsor aware that those deliverables in that document were dependent on suitable resourcing, which would be defined and clarified in stage 4. Again, a common problem I see is that alliance managers, salesmen generally, get carried away and start to talk about very, very aspirational targets, but they don't always think about the resources needed to deliver those targets and those target numbers. We're not going to make that mistake because we've specifically got 2 stages, which is going to cover that. Next objective, this one's very important, is assign accountabilities, assign the role that each of the key stakeholders in the workshop will play in the RACI chart. And we'll come to that slightly later. And again, using the RACI chart, we're going to, one of our objectives is to make joint decisions that stick, that are enforceable, that are realistic, that we know we can achieve. So those are our workshop objectives, and those are the sort of pre-workshop tasks. So running a stage 3 workshop. Here's the suggested agenda, very, very simple. I've mentioned it before. Review and confirm the outline offerings, review and agree the sales engagement model, review and agree go-to-market activities, review and agree any joint initiatives, projects, or opportunities which are already running. Don't forget, you don't want to get in the way of any good things going on. The point of VST is to harness and clarify and codify and integrate activities. It's not to stop things happening. So if you've got some good initiatives running with your particular partner that you've chosen, you need to integrate those into VST, or put another way, you want to show how VST supports those. You don't want to stop them. And then again, review and agree target accounts. This is a fairly straightforward, fairly simple. There may be other agenda items that you want to add, but don't forget, the more agenda items you add, the longer the discussion and the longer the meeting will be. Now, I'm suggesting if you're having a face-to-face workshop, a usual period of time would be 4 hours with a break after 2 hours, natural comfort break, clear your head, 5-10 minutes, maximum 15 minutes, grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, whatever, and start again. So you've only got 4 hours. And if you start to debate and discuss some of these areas in detail, you'll find you'll eat up that time quite quickly. You can make the sessions longer. You can do a whole day's planning. And of course, it will be dependent on the amount of business you're expecting from that particular partnership. If your aspirations are very large, if your ambition is quite high, then more planning, more thinking, more structure is required. If it's a smaller relationship with more defined, already defined propositions, then perhaps you can get away with a shorter period of time. But I would imagine that your minimum period of time for the workshop is 4 hours. And this is how you would go through it. So what you're seeing here is a high-level summary review of the typical MOUP document. So you'd be talking people through all this as a summary. You want the purpose of doing this is that you want everybody in the meeting to have the same understanding of the critical stage 2 document. So you want to debate and discuss these points, not to change them, but to get understanding, to make sure everybody understands all these things. And don't accept silence as acceptance. You need to push for it. You need to speak to people specifically and say, do you agree? Do you understand? Can you repeat back to me what we've just said in each of these areas, etc., etc. So you do a stage 2 review, so you've got consensus, and then you start to go into each one of the areas. And here's just an example of what some of those areas might look like. So you would have some words on the screen which articulates that particular section in the stage 2 document. So you look at the vision, you look at the scope, you look at the joint business value propositions in outline. Now you might want to spend a little bit more time on this, because obviously this is the thing that you're going to go into more detail on. And you're going to break some of these things apart and actually define them, design them, and talk about how they would actually work. And obviously, it'll be a combination of on-screen and flip chart or whiteboard input. So you want active discussion, you want people to be engaged, you want there to be dynamism in the room, you want people to challenge some of these offerings, etc., etc. So this will be a slide that you would usually dwell over. Could be half an hour, 40 minutes on this one slide alone. Then you want to talk about key stakeholders. And again, in this worked example, I think we used the example last time of NetApp and Accenture. So for consistency, I've done the same thing again. I've used the same example. Here's NetApp, here's Accenture. So we're talking here in this case about DACH, it looks like, yep. And on both sides, you would look for a strategic representation. You'd look for the alliance managers on both sides or at the management level. And then you'd look at the operational people who are involved, again, to generate consensus so that people know what the escalation routes are, people know who's involved and what their role is in the overall relationship. Then you talk about the market fit of the proposed solutions. Again, you might want to spend some time on this one because you want to know which markets you're going to be involved in, and you want to know how the joint business value proposition or propositions that you're creating fit into that market. Are they novel? Are they new? Are they breakthrough? Are they similar to others? If they're similar to others, that leads you into a discussion about how do we differentiate, etc., etc., etc. Reward systems, we talked about this. This is just letting people know that there will be some kind of reward for good behavior. That's basically based on your discussions in stage 2, as we said. Sometimes all people need is acknowledgement. It's just an email to a senior executive saying that Joe or Bill or Susan or Fred or Jim or whoever it is has done a really good job. They've acted collaboratively. They've seen the need to do something that benefits the alliance, or it could be something more formal, like some kind of award that you hand out, or it could be some a commercial pecuniary advantage, some bonus that you win. It's entirely up to you, but whatever it is, you should make them aware that it exists. Relationship development plans, you're in stage 3, which is still the pilot stage, really. You're still developing the first VST exercise, but you should let the other operational people know that there's probably going to be other VST exercises as you expand the relationship and how the relationship will expand. Decision making and issue escalation, again, you're reinforcing this point that although these individuals in the room are making decisions, those decisions will be reviewed at various levels. And also, if they have a problem, there is a structure for escalating those issues. And that structure and that process might be slightly different, depending on whether it's a technical problem, a marketing problem, a sales problem, or any other kind of problem. There may be different routes for that to happen. Relationship change management. Again, as we said from stage 2, we have certain individuals in certain roles. If any of those roles change, or if any people leave, or if any people join, there is a defined person on each side who will track those changes and update the stage 2 document. Key alliance metrics, these will have been decided in stage 2. These are just some of the examples that you might see in a stage 2 document, things like deal size and deal revenue, the percentage of resell that's available, the pipeline, etc., etc., etc. So again, the operational people need to know that. The communication program, what communications are we going to be making? How do decisions and discussions made at the operational level reach the managerial level, reach the strategic level, etc., etc. And then we start to come on to the RACI chart, the sales engagement model. Now, when we come on to the RACI chart, I'm assuming that everybody on this call is aware of RACI. I think I've checked this before. Excuse me, I think I've checked this before. RACI is an acronym. It stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consulted, Informed. Is there anybody who hasn't come across RACI before and needs further Okay, Sandrine, what I suggest is ping me with an email. We'll get a quick 10, 15, 20-minute call. Won't take more than that, just so I can give you a little bit more background on RACI and how it works. I'll go through it during this session, and Kristen as well. Okay, I'll go through it in this training session, guys. But if you do need further explanation after the training session, you can download RACI documents, or I can send you RACI documents that will explain it, or B, we can get on a quick call and I can explain to you how it all works. So the acronym is RACI, usually called RACI, or can sometimes be called RACI. The acronym stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consulted, and Informed. What that means is that for any action here, in this case, we're talking about the sales engagement model, but here, any action, actually, we perhaps have a better example. Yeah, here we go. So we're trying to create a joint action plan. And of course, in the joint action plan, you're going to have actions. And those actions will be time dated. They'll be due on a certain time. And that's fine. That's good. But for this particular action, in this case, there was an action to look at the historical data of the relationship between NetApp and Accenture, and to review the wins and losses, and to understand why there were certain wins and why there were certain losses, and whether there were any lessons that could be learned from past data. Now, for that action, there is someone in this column who is responsible, meaning they are responsible for seeing that that action happens. Now, typically that will be you and your opposite number, the person on the other side who is the relationship manager at the managerial level for the alliance relationship in question. That's why there's two names in here. One is from NetApp, John Simmons. One is from Accenture, Marcus Latterkamp. So that person is responsible for ensuring that all these things happen. But this is very, very important. They don't actually do the action because there's too many of them, and they don't have the requisite knowledge, and they don't have access to the right data and the right places. So what you also want to identify, and this is only a part completed chart, there are gaps in it. This is an example of a work in progress. In this column, you would list the people who are accountable for the action. In other words, they actually do the action. They actually find the data. They actually create the reports for these guys to be able to examine. So the names here would typically be at least one name from each side, but conceivably could be more. And those are the people actually doing the job. Now, to be able to do that job, they may have to consult with some people. In other words, they may have to ask some people for help. They may have to go to people with maybe a particular technical knowledge, or have people in a different area of the business, in marketing or in product development or whatever it is. These people don't do the job, but they help these people to do the job properly. That's what's called the consulted area. And then finally, you've got the informed. Now, just as your name will probably appear in all of these actions here in this column, it's likely that your exec sponsor and the exec sponsor on the partner side will appear in that column. Because what you want to show is that the exec sponsor is being informed that these are the actions that you're taking, and these are the responsibilities of the responsible, accountable, and consulted people. And the reason you do that, and the reason you tell people that these exec sponsors are going to be informed, is that it encourages them to do it. If they feel that their accountability in a process is being reviewed by a senior executive in their own organization, then they're far more likely to do it than if you just generate an action plan and they put it to the back of the stack of papers that they've got to work on. So this is why a RACI chart is powerful. It was designed originally as a way of keeping control and granting structure and achievability to very large projects where there was not command and control authority of the person who's responsible. So it's perfect for an alliance scenario. When we go into more detail on the RACI, if Kristen and Sandrine need a further call, if we go into more detail, I'll tell you about the tips and tricks of a good RACI chart. But for now, just remember, if your name is in this column, it shouldn't be in any of the other columns. So yes, you can be responsible for multiple actions, but you can't be responsible and also accountable, because suddenly you haven't got enough bandwidth to be able to do them. Likewise, if you've got one single person accountable for all these actions in the accountable column, again, that's a warning flag, because that person won't have enough time, probably, to be able to do them. the nature of these particular actions should be varied within the overall context of the alliance, and thus you want different people accountable for them. And then again, you've got informed here. So big red flag is if you get the same name appearing multiple times on the same horizontal line. And big red flag is if you get the same name appearing on multiple actions in multiple columns going down here. So documenting the output. So when we've gone into the workshop, when we've reviewed the stage 2 documents so that everybody's in the same place in terms of understanding what we're trying to achieve, when we've then debated and discussed the detail of each of those headings, then we want to complete an output plan, a joint action plan. And typically, these are the kinds of high-level headings that you would have in the stage 3 output document. Now, you're not limited to these. You may have people in the room who make good suggestions as to additional headings, but I would suggest that these are the minimum number of headings that you would need. So obviously, you would want to have in your joint action plan an objectives section. And those objectives should be either objective statements like grow the relationship by 60% within 18 months, or they should be grow market share in the manufacturing sector in the UK by 5%. So in other words, specific. They should also, these objective statements should also support your vision statement in stage 2. You don't want there to be different, you don't want there to be contention between those two things. One supports the other. And then, of course, you'd want specifically some revenue, lead gen, or co-selling targets. There may be other things, but that's certainly what you'd want in there. Then you'd want some dialogue around the joint business value proposition, what it is, what it looks like, a description of it, the definition and prioritization of them, the offering strategy, what your role is, what your organization's role is, what your partner's role is, the market segmentation, which market you're going for, the buyer personas and use cases, the challenges and opportunities, any resources you've got in terms of case studies or use studies that you can use. And then, of course, the go-to-market levers, the go-to-market tactics, the calendar, the risk and dependencies, the marketing plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just a template example. You can choose your own or develop your own. So again, stage 3, this is your output plan. These are the kinds of questions that if you can answer these questions, the answers going into these particular headings will help you to create your stage 3 output plan. Markets, customers, partners, joint service offerings, price, positioning. So the steps to actually create your output plan. Step 1 is define your joint target markets. Step 2 is define the target customers. Step 3 is define how you'll approach those customers. Step 4 is define the joint business value propositions you'll offer. Step 5 is define the joint sales process you'll use, your process, their process, new process. Step 6, build your alliance budget model, what it will cost you. Step 7, decide how you'll build the pipeline. That's a generic, well-proven 7-step approach to joint account planning. Here's another template that you might use. This is slightly different because there's slightly different headings in it. They're equally valuable. So race the explanation. There's a short explanation in this slide deck, which I'll be sending you after this call. But as I say, if either Sandrine or Kristen, if you need further information, let me know. I can send you more documents, or we can get on a call and we can talk it through. Or we could work We could do a worked example if you wish. So this basically describes how you complete a RACI chart, and these are the steps involved in completing the RACI chart. Identify all the processes and activities necessary. Those are the actions down the left-hand side, usually taken from the MOUP and specifically the go-to-market plan. Identify all the roles in the relationship and list them across the top. Typically that will be under the headings RACI. You may want to include some other types of role, but be careful you don't make it too big because it will get very, very, very complex. That is pretty much the standard. 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of role. Complete the cells, resolve any overlaps. You'll find when you're doing this for real, you'll find when you're doing this in a working situation, that when you do the first pass at it, you do get overlaps. You get the same person in multiple places. And then you have to stand back and say to the team at large, that isn't going to work. That person is overloaded. So we've got to figure this out before we leave this room. It's no good leaving it like that because it won't get done. Resolving gaps. The reverse of that problem is where you identify something to be done, but you can't find anybody to do it. Again, you need to resolve that somehow, because if you leave it like that, that action will not get done. Simple RACI explanation. It explains what the acronym means and how it works. I think I've gone through that. This is just really justification, if any were needed, as to why you should use this RACI approach. Here is the definition, so you've got that. And here's some words that describe why it's useful, how you use it, and what sort of activities or decisions you should include in your RACI chart. Again, you can read this for yourself. So you've got, oops, sorry. You've got, yes, you've got the RACI process. Then you've got the vertical analysis. That's basically looking at the columns. So again, this is what I was saying. No R's or A's. Should this functional role be eliminated? If you start to see that there's nobody responsible and there's nobody accountable, well, you should eliminate that horizontal line because it isn't going to get done. You then challenge whether it's necessary. Too many A's. Does a proper segmentation of duties exist? This is just helping you to think through whether you've produced a good RACI chart or not. And then the horizontal axis. So this one, the vertical analysis, is when you're looking down the columns. This one, the horizontal analysis is when you're looking across the rows. And again, I'll leave that for you to read through yourself. Change management issues. The common success factor, which is relationship change management, is significantly helped by a good quality RACI chart, because you're documenting who is responsible specifically for various areas. If somebody leaves, then you take them out of the RACI chart, obviously, and you suddenly notice a gap in your RACI chart. You have a critical task which is due to be completed, but that person has been promoted, taken on board a new role, or has left the organization. So you need to react. You need to do something. Here's just an example of how others have slightly adapted it to make it clearer. Here's the kind of typical actions from the stage 3 go-to-market planning session. Develop a business value proposition, agree a go-to-market model, identify key stakeholders and roles. And then you've got responsible, accountable, consulted, informed, and deadline. And then here, it's making it clear that the responsible person is the alliance manager, usually on both sides. The accountable area is the marketing department. The consulted area is the technical department, and the informed is the senior exec sponsor. Just be aware that as these things change, these things might change. So here it says, agree the go-to-market model. Well, yes, the marketing department is accountable for that, but there may be other activities here that the marketing department isn't accountable for. So just be aware of that. That brings us to the final decision, which is the go, no go decision. As we've said, VST is a process. The output of one stage is the input of another. So you have to get each stage signed off by your exec sponsor so that you know you've completed it and everybody's clear that that's locked down. And so the final action of the stage is to output the joint go-to-market action plan. Just like stage 2, you would send it around as a draft for discussion with version control as one of the first sections. Anybody can then input any changes into that in terms of the content, not in terms of the vision statement, in terms of the content. You will then be the version control manager or the controlling manager for that document. You will then update the document and recirculate it so that after 2 or 3 cycles, you have a document which you're happy to present or to submit to the exec sponsor. And the plan is underplanned by a RACI structure, so the exec sponsor can see exactly what the activities are for the next period of time. Now, that period of time is typically 12 months. The stage 3 document, the joint action plan, is typically an annual action plan. And obviously, the annual action plan is reviewed every quarter, and you're reviewing what progress are we making towards those objectives, those key objectives that we've identified. Again, I'm using NetApp and Accenture as an example, in this case in Germany. And again, this is an exact timeline of how long it took us to run stage 3, September the 5th through to October the 10th. And you can see what actions we took on each particular, or what actions were completed by which particular date. And then from the Alliance Best Practice database, you should be able to go in and search on any of these things and draw down any of them. And you'll see that you've got, should be some stuff on RACI there. It doesn't look like I've got too much on there. You should be able to type in RACI on the download section of the website. In the search box, and it should throw up 3 or 4 documents that will give you more detail about the RACI process. And then there's just some examples at the end, just so that you can see how other organizations have done it. This is from Cisco, the challenges and solutions. Cisco, for many years, maybe still do, used a particular structure called the VSEM methodology, the Vision, Strategy, Execution, and Metrics model. And for each of the major partnerships they had, they would fill in details here in quite some detail. So this was their version of a stage 2 MOUP. Here's a corporate marketing VSEM from Cisco. Can't remember where I got that. Clearly, I got it from Cisco, but I'm not sure from whom in Cisco, but it gives you some idea. Again, gives you some idea of what sort of things they put in each of the areas. Here's an IBM example. Oops, sorry, hang on. Oh, sorry, no. Sorry. The IBM example is in the associated file. So these are the things you should download. You should be able to download something with IBM and stage 3 in the title, and it will give you various outputs. And you should be able to download Capgemini in stage 3 in the title. And again, it will give you various outputs. These are not commercially sensitive. They're just examples of what stage 3 documents they produced. And when you look at them, don't take fright, because obviously they are big organizations. They're talking about large relationships. They're obviously much more complex than you would normally have, but it just gives you a sense of how you would actually do this job. Okay, does all that make sense? It makes so much sense that you've got absolutely no questions whatsoever, and you're all perfectly happy with it, clearly. Any questions, guys?
I think it'll just be helpful to review it on our own
Yeah,
again.
that's fine. Yeah.
Like go through the examples more slowly and just try to match them against our businesses.
I'll send you, as soon as I've finished, in the next 5 or so minutes, I'll send you the slide deck. So it's, whilst it's fresh in your mind, you have the opportunity of reviewing it. I'll also add, I noticed for some reason I haven't put some of the RACI documents on the downloads, identifying that you can download RACI documents. So I'll specifically send those to you, particularly for Kristen and Sandrine, who hadn't come across it. I know Frank has in the past. Did I mean Kristen or did I mean Elizabeth? I can't remember now. Liz,
I think all of us want it.
Oh, you want it? Okay, all right, fine. Okay, I'll send it to everybody. If you're familiar with it, it's not a great problem. You can just put it away to one side. But it's a very powerful approach. I will just say that, and it's absolutely almost custom made for alliances, because if you think about it, alliances are situations where you want to get things done, but you can't order somebody in another organization to do certain things. So you have to find a process and a procedure by which everybody agrees, yes, we're going to do that, and we write it all down ourselves. And it is worth, sometimes you'll get into a detailed discussion about a RACI chart, and halfway through it, you'll think, why don't we just get on and do it? Why don't I just say I'll do it? It is worth constructing a good quality RACI chart, because you've got a chance of that action plan getting done then. If you cut corners and say, oh, well, there's a few gaps, so I'll just fill in, you're just committing suicide. You're just committing, not organizational suicide, but certainly massive overload and stress suicide, I think.
Avoid the R will be my recommendation.
Spoken like a true RACI experienced user, Frank. I'm afraid you won't be able to avoid the R too much, because, like it or not, if you are the alliance manager, your very purpose in life usually is to manage and run that relationship. You are responsible one way or another for the results of that relationship.
It's also how to distribute, to dispatch the A responsibility is also a key success of the RACI matrix. Because if you get some sponsorship coming from various parts of your organization, is also a key success factor. As mentioned on the RACI matrix, there's only one A on the matrix itself, but you also can set up two plans, let's say two separate plans, one on your company and the other one on the other side.
Yeah,
because both joint. That's the beauty of the alliance, is in the only place where you could have two exec sponsors having the A for both companies.
Yeah, agree. I think Frank makes a very good point. You can't avoid the responsibility, but the skill by which you allocate the roles and the skill by which you choose the right key stakeholders is a very good skill, and it helps you be able to get much more done than you would otherwise imagine. Okay.
And the beauty of that is that exec sponsor could be very interested to jump into this train, because it's business as unusual, and they could learn and understand different ways to engage new business. So also for them, it's a way to have more interaction with partners. So we here definitely have a very good value, internally speaking, in our organization.
Yeah, I think that my experience of dealing with executive sponsors and senior executives is that in the main, they want to help you guys. They want to give you the help. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know how to get involved, how much to get involved. And of course, being at a senior level, they know they can't get involved in the detail. The RACI chart gives them the opportunity of seeing the overview, the breadth of the tasks necessary and who's involved, and also gives them a defined process for what happens if certain things are not getting done. So the RACI chart combined with the exec sponsor job description, which again you can download from the website, I think are two key crucial documents. And if you have an exec sponsor from each side on an important relationship, you're a long way towards success already. Yeah, sorry, Elizabeth, I'm overrunning. If there are no other questions, no other thoughts, I'll call it to a close and I'll send you the documents. All right, guys, see you in 2 weeks' time.
See you in 2
Thanks,
weeks.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.